chapter 3, Mishnah number 2. Okay, Rabbi Chanina Sagan Kohanim. Rabbi Chanina, that he was one of the assistant to the Kohanim. He was right in the end of the second temple. Omer, he used to say, Heavy mispalo l'shlomo shel malchus, you should pray for the government. She'ilmali moro, because if you weren't afraid of the government, ishes re'eu chayim balao, people would swallow each other alive. From here we learn the importance of the police. What's going on in America now? They want to, the rioters want to disband all police forces in America. I think they've already succeeded in one city or something. Here it says the opposite. You must pray that there is a government, that there's a police force, because if it wasn't for that, the people were afraid of the police force, they were afraid of the government, as people would swallow one another alive. Rabbi Hanania ben Turadion and Rabbi Hanania ben Turadion. Like I said, he was one of the Asara Haragim Malchos. He was one of them that was killed by the Romans with Rabbi Akiva. He said, two people that sit and learn Torah, people that sit, and there's not between them words of Torah, this is called a Moshav Leitzim. It is called a place of jokers. Shene'amar, like it says, Moshav Leitzim lo yashav. Avos Ch3, but two people that sit, and there is between them words of Torah, the Shekhinah is between them. Like it says, Azni bar yira Hashem, if those two people that fear God, Ishal Re'eu, one to the other, they will speak words of Torah, V'yakshav Hashem, God will listen. V'yishman, he'll hear. V'yichtov sefer zikron, and he'll write down the words for a remembrance. Shafilu menayin afilu echad. How do you know? What about two people? What about yourself, one person? Should you sit and learn Torah if you haven't got anybody to learn with? He says, even one person that sits and learns Torah, Kodesh Baruch Hu, he gives them a big reward. We'll see what the difference between reward and writing your words down in a book. Like it says, Yoshev Badad, a person who sits alone, Vayigdom, and he is quiet, Ki natal alav, that he will receive a reward. Not all, he will receive Allah. He will receive skar, reward for this. He's sitting and learning. Yidom means that he will speak quietly, like it says, Kol Damama Daka. He's learning. But you should know that when you learn Torah, you should always learn out loud. It doesn't have to be loud enough so your next door neighbors hear, but it should be loud enough that you. When you pray, by the way, when you pray Shemona Esrei, you're also supposed to speak aloud. Shemona Esrei is supposed to be loud. It's just not supposed to be loud enough that it disturbs the person next to you. But you're supposed to, when you say Shemona Esrei, you're not supposed to say in your heart. When you say Birkat HaMazon, that's supposed to be out loud. It's supposed to be that other people hear. That they can say, and really all blessings are supposed to be loud enough that other can hear. Again, you don't have to overdo it. But it should be loud enough that people can say Amen. But learning Torah should be out loud. Okay, let's go. Let's look at the Kahati. Here we have Kahati. Who is Rabbi Chanina Sagan Kohanim? Have I got any control over this or not? No. Okay. So then you'll read yourself. Rabbi Chanina Sagan Kohanim. I'll read from my book. Who is this Rabbi Chanina Sagan Kohanim? Like I said, in the first two chapters of Pirkei Avos, it went pretty much in chronological order. It sort of jumped back a little bit with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. A little bit, but mainly it was in chronological order. But then after that, it's not in chronological order anymore. And here's one of the examples. Rabbi Chanina Sagan Kohanim, the Kahati, Rabbi Pinchas Kahati, in his explanation says, Rabbi Chanina ben Sagan Kohanim, Shemesh, he served as a Sgan ha'acharon la'acharon yakonim, as the assistant for the last of the great Kohanim, the great priests that were in the, priest, not a nice word, but anyway, that's the grand Kohanim that were in the end of the second temple. And he saw with his eyes the destruction of the second temple. Shenigron, that was caused because of sinat chinam. It was because of hatred, umilchemet achim, and war that was between different factions of Jews. Lefichach, here's here ma'od, therefore he was very, very careful to warn everyone and say, Gadol HaShalom, Sheshakal Keneged Kol Ma'aseh Bereshis. There's it's in the Midrash called Sifri. It says, great is peace, that it is equal, it equals all of the whole entire creation to be at peace. It's better to give up than to be right. Huh? Va'av b'mamro shebemishnatenu medaber u'ala shalom. And here also he talks about peace. And that's what Rabbi Turadian says, pray for the peace of the government. Let's look at what he says. We'll go back to the Kahati over here and let's see what he has to say. Second, do we have this? Yes. Rabbi Hanina Sgana Kohanim, he said, Shalom, you should pray for the peace, for the shalom of the government, Afilu shel umot ha'olam, even the government of the non-Jews, like it says in Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu v'darshu et shalom ha'ir asher higliti etchem shama. God said to Yirmiyahu, you should pray for the peace of the city that I have exiled you there. V'yitpalu ba'ada el Hashem, and pray to God. Ki b'shlomo yiyeh lachem shalom, because if the government is in peace, you will be in peace. Right? Very, very common. The Rebbe once said that anti-Semitism, there's ample reasons for anti-Semitism. People are jealous of the Jews. People are, they're jealous because the Jews are God's people. They don't like the Torah. It says when the Torah was given, there came Sina, l'umos ha'olam, that the non-Jews hated us from the time of the Torah. Everybody hated Abraham. It says Abraham was an Ivri. He was on one side of the world, in other words, on the other side of the world. But the Rebbe said, after all these different reasons, right? The Jews have high IQs, and then the Jews are intelligent, and etc., etc. After all these reasons, and that the Jews leave Torah, they leave Torah and the mitzvahs, and God punishes them, and etc. But after everything, said the Rebbe, what really causes it in the end is money. When people don't have money, they go crazy. They go crazy, and they see that the Jews, or at least they imagine that the Jews do have money, and so that's what it means. If there is no peace in the country, if the economy isn't good or whatever, then it's not going to be good for the Jews. But Tosfos Yom Tov, and the Tosfos Yom Tov says, Shalom Shal Malchut, this is the king Melech. Im Sarav, you should pray for the government, the president and his ministers, the Yoatzav and his advisors, Amanigim Malchuto, that conduct the government and they make judgment. In other words, pray for the president, the ruler, and the government and the judges. Therefore, it doesn't say Shalom HaMelech. You should pray for the peace of the king. You should pray for the Shalom, it says HaMalchut. In other words, the whole entire government. Because if people didn't have fear for the government, the Malchut, Ishes Re'eu Chayim below, people would swallow each other up, like it says, Lama Nimshalu B'nei Adam, L'dagei Hayom, like it says in the Gemara, Lama Nimshalu, but why are people compared to fish in the sea, like it says in the prophet Habakkuk, V'ta'aseh Adam Kadagei Hayom, man will be made like the fish of the sea. What does that mean? It says, Ma dagim, just like fish in the sea, the bigger fish eat up the smaller ones, called dagim mechavero, boleat chavero. Each big fish swallows up the small ones. Av b'nei adam, also people, if they didn't fear the government, call a gadol mechavero, everyone who is greater will swallow up his friend alive. And remember once some rabbi said that why swallow him up alive? Just say swallow him because they enjoy feeling the other guy going down his throat. In other words, it's a tremendous feeling that you have conquered this other person and you've put them out of business or whatever. Let's go Reb Hanania ben Teradion. Let's go back to the Kahati, right? Reb Hanania ben Teradion. He says over here he was a Tana. He was one of the Tanaim in the generation of Rabbi Akiva. Right? This is after the temple was destroyed. Rabbi Hanina he was there when the temple was destroyed, and this is after the temple was destroyed. He's one of the 10 of the rabbis that the Romans tortured to death. Bito Beruria, Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion, his daughter was married to Rabbi Meir. His daughter was Beruria. She was the wife of Rabbi Meir. There's some very amazing stories told, a very tragic story told about her also, how she died. Hu Masar et Nafsho al Limud Torah. That's why the whole story about Elokad Rabbi Meir Aneni, that her sister, Beruria, she was taken into imprisonment and put into in prison, and Rabbi Meir went and saved him. It's a long, beautiful story. And despite the decree of the Romans that the Jews should not learn Torah, would gather groups of people in public, and he would teach them Torah until he was caught. The importance of not being afraid. Until he was caught, and they made him, they declared that he should be burned when he was wrapped up in a Sefer Torah. You read over there, it talks about it in the prayers of Musaf. In the prayer of Musaf, the repetition of the Shliach Tzibur, and the Musaf prayer, of Yom Kippur. Yes, Rabbi Hanania, let's go back to the text. Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion. What is Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion? What did he say? Two people that sit and learn Torah, and there's not two people that are sitting and they don't learn Torah, it's like a group of jokers. Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion, let's do the commentary. Two people that sit and learn Torah, two people that sit and they do not learn Torah. They're not sitting and speaking words of Torah. Doesn't mean that every time you sit down, you have to have a book open. No, it means when you sit down, you should say a word of Torah, say a sikh of the Rebbe, say an idea of Torah, say a law, a halacha, and a midrash, a story. Harizeh Moshev Leitzim. This is called a sitting of jokers. Even if they don't joke around, but because they're sitting and not talking about anything productive, like it says, in a group of jokers, you should not sit. Right in the beginning of the book of Tehillim, Psalms. And it says, it says, but you should desire God's Torah. Right there in Psalms Aleph, the first Psalms. Mikan, for here we know that anyone who does not speak words of Torah, it is like he is just an empty-headed, blabberer. Some people say two people that sit and they do not have words of Torah between them. What does it mean? That afal pisha oskim, even though that they are learning Torah, but each one on his own, but there is not between them words of Torah. What does it mean between them? That they are not interacting at all. Eino mitchabrim yachad lilmod, that they're not interacting to learn in a group. That's called a group of fools. She'en ze ela mishum shekol echad mitlotzetz bikirbo miyadiat chavero. It's only because each one thinks the other person is a fool. He's joking in himself. I'm going to learn with him. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Therefore, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm not going to waste my time. Not good. And two people that sit together, according to the second explanation, and even if they're learning Torah, but each one on his own, very bad. But if there's two people, and there is between them words of Torah, then the Shekhinah is between them. Kolomer, in other words, Shemitoch divrei Toratam, that because they are learning Torah, Masigim em bekavod boram. They have a little bit of a grasp of the glory of Hashem. Like it says, Aznid Borayira Hashem Ishel Re'eu. Like it says, those who fear God will speak words of Torah one to the other, and God will listen, and He will hear, and He'll write their words in a book of, how do you say, in His own ledger, to remember before Him those who fear God and are value His name. That's what it means. Ishas Re'eu, a person to his other, means two. Okay, so what do we say over here? Interesting. It says one person to the other. 1 second, let me just turn this off. Oh, yeah. I'm learning at class now. Okay. Yes. Ish is a tua. In other words, if there are two people, even if two people sit and learn Torah, then God listens and He is very pleased, and those words are eternal. From this, what does it mean God listens? That the Shekhinah is between them. What about one person? Says the Mishnah, Ein li elu shtayim. All I know is if one person learns Torah, that the gadol scharam, that the reward is great when they are learning together. Minayim shefilu echad. What about if one person sits and learns Torah? That the Kodesh Baruch Hu gives him a reward, because it says Yoshev badad v'yidom, a person that sits alone and is quiet. Says at first glance this is not understandable. Why does it say quiet? So that's what the Kahati says. The hege b'Torah beino beinatzmo. He's quiet means that he speaks the words of Torah quietly to himself. Vayidom, like called damama. Ki natal alav means he will receive a reward. So even one person will receive a reward. So here we have two lessons from two different people in the same Mishnah. Rabbi Chanina ben the Sagan of Kohanim, the assistant of Kohanim, he talks about Ish l'Rayehu, a man to his friend. What does he say? That if there's no government, people will swallow each other up. If there's no government, then people will actually harm each other. Then we have another level of two people sitting together and they don't learn Torah. Those people, they're considered Ish l'Rayehu, but they're considered to be like two empty-headed nothings. But then if there's two people that sit together and they do speak words of Torah, then it says that the Shekhinah is between them. So here we have three levels of Ish l'Rayehu. Ish l'Rayehu, one swallows up his friend. Ish l'Rayehu, they're sitting there and they're just two fools. And Ish l'Rayehu, that they get a tremendous reward if they learn Torah and the Shekhinah is between them. All right, let's just learn a couple of lines over here of the laws of milk and meat. Can we do this? Yes, we can.